short. Damn. Is he making his way over?
That he's unqualified. With a resume as a Rhodes Scholar at Oxford and a Harvard degree, he's also a lieutenant in the Navy. Wow. And at age 29, he won the mayorship of South Bend with an overwhelming majority. Now, young people in New Hampshire are excited for someone with a vision like Mayor Pete's. Someone who will treat climate change like the national security emergency that it is. Somebody that will protect our civil rights, especially our voting rights. And a president who will ensure that there is a new and exciting economy that works for us all. So please give Mayor Pete Buttigieg a warm Portsmouth welcome.
It's overwhelming. Just a little while ago, I asked our political director, I said, how's this little meet and greet taking shape? He said, this isn't a meet and greet anymore, it's a rally. I'm so thrilled to be back up here. It's been a long time since I've been to Portsmouth. Came up here as a student to knock on doors for Gene Shaheen and try to make myself useful. My mother was in town on break, so we went on a little boat tour, and they showed us the line. They said, the lobster you catch over here is Maine lobster, but the lobster over here is New Hampshire lobster, and it tastes just a little bit better. I'm looking forward to making that determination after repeated experiments every time I come up here. Thank you so much for the warm welcome. It is overwhelming for somebody who's, let's face it, not exactly extremely famous, and the youngest guy in the picture. From a small city, or medium-sized city, let's see, in northern Indiana, to come and find that our message of generational change, our message about freedom, democracy, and security is resonating from coast to coast and resonating right here in the first in the nation state of New Hampshire. Thank you. I'll admit that I still have a little bit of explaining to do sometimes when I show up. People say, what makes a Midwestern millennial mayor think he has any business being in the 2020 conversation? That's fair game. If I'm not ready to answer that, I probably shouldn't be here. But I believe that it is time, first of all, for more mayors, more local officials, to be stepping into the national arena, because we need Washington to look more like our best-run cities and towns before it starts happening the other way around. We need more people from smaller communities to be stepping up. Our party is for everybody, big cities and small ones, coast to coast, but our party, I'm afraid, has sometimes lost its ability to connect with the middle of the country. I believe that every person matters and every community matters, and I'm proud of our story from the industrial Midwest, the city of South Bend, a city that the week I got into the race for mayor was showing up on a national list of American dying cities. We were number 8, because that's what people thought of communities, like so many rural and industrial communities where youth grow up being told that the only pathway to success for us is to get out. And so that's what I did. I left, and no sooner had I left than I began to understand that I was from somewhere, that home mattered to me, and I began a long, long journey of finding my way back to where I belong. But people need to hear the story of how our city came back. And I will walk you through the blow by blow. We can talk about that later. But the important thing is how we didn't come back also. I didn't go around saying, I alone can fix it. I didn't say we're going to make South Bend great again. Our city's story and the story of so many wonderful cities and towns across this country is a rebuke to those in the White House who say that the only formula for our kinds of communities is resentment, nostalgia, and an unkeepable promise to turn back the clock. There is no honest politics that revolves around the word again. The truth is that we have to recognize that these changes are coming. The changes are going to happen with or without us. The question isn't, can we stop the changes and rewind them? The question is, how do we make sure those changes actually work for us? It can be done. And it must be done because that's how we're actually going to come together. So that's why a Midwestern mayor. And why a millennial? Because our generation has so much at stake. Because the younger you are, the more you have on the line in the decisions that are being made today, with or without your participation. We are the generation that grew up with school shootings as the norm. It was in high school when Columbine happened. And we say just because that's been the norm does not mean it's okay. We're a generation that's going to be on the business end of climate change for as long as we live. And we could be the generation to be the first in history to make less than our parents, unless something is done to change the trajectory of our economy. So are we ready to change it? The generational alliance, it's not about young people versus older people. It's about everybody who cares about the future. Everybody who cares about what the world's going to look like in 2054. That's the year, God willing, that I get to the current age of the current president. Everybody who cares about that coming together. So that's why a Midwestern millennial mayor, relatively unknown with a funny name, coming out of the Midwest, is here among you in Portsmouth. I'm so glad that I came. Somebody asked, how do you pronounce your name? Well, listen carefully, I'll explain how to pronounce my name. Pete. I'm proud of my name, Buttigieg. It doesn't exactly roll off the tongue, but it's my father's name. My father came to this country because he believed he could get a great education here, and then he became a U.S. citizen because he believed in what America could offer him. Somebody told him when he was getting ready to leave the tiny island he grew up on that he could be a big fish in a small pond if he stuck around. He said, I'd rather be a medium-sized fish in a very big pond. And we lost that earlier this year. But I told him, I hope that I make you proud when I do this. And he said, you will. As we said in the introduction, a lot of folks coming through, a lot of impressive and fantastic folks coming through. And I think once we get a look, and you got a lot of people with interesting profiles. I definitely had the left-handed millennial gay Episcopalian war veteran mayor. Once people look at you because of your interesting profile, what do they hear? I hope when they look at us, they hear a new vocabulary around the values that make us who we are. Starting with freedom. It is time for Democrats to talk about freedom like it's our issue, not like it can be monopolized by the folks on the other side of the aisle. Folks on the other side of the aisle who may be sincere but who neglect the fact that government is just one of many things that can make you unfree. Your neighbor can make you unfree. Your cable company can make you unfree. We've all experienced a little bit of that. What about freedom to? Not just freedom from regulation. What about freedom to? The freedom to start a small business. It comes with knowing that your health care is taken care of and leaving a job at the freedom, as our friends at organized labor know, is on the line, and that they're thankfully reasserting in Concord right now, thanks to Democratic help, the freedom to organize for a fair day's pay for a fair day's work. The freedom on this International Women's Day, the freedom to make your own health care decisions. That's the freedom that's so important to so many of us. So is the freedom to marry. Freedom to marry the person you love. By the way, the person I love happens to be a teacher. And it is we we need to start paying teachers a little more like that. So don't let anybody tell you freedom's a Republican issue. The same thing with democracy. Our party is called the Democratic Party for a reason. We care about democracy. We care about the trajectory of this country being in the direction of each generation seeing our society more democratic than it used to be. That means if you are a U.S. citizen, nothing should stand in the way of you being able to exercise your right to vote. Yep. It means that we put an end to the Citizens United decision that lets dollars out there. We do away with a system that allows politicians to choose their voters by drawing the lines around them rather than the other way around. And yes, it just might mean structural change to depoliticize the Supreme Court before it's too late. So let's talk about freedom in the state that says live free or die. Let's talk about democracy in the state that gave us Granny D. And at long last, let's talk about security, knowing that there's a lot more to security than putting up a wall from sea to shining sea. Let's talk about the kind of security that kept me safe when I was deployed overseas. And it wasn't just the pistol on my hip, and it wasn't just the rifle around my shoulder, and it wasn't just the body armor on my back. It was the fact that the American flag attached to my shoulder represented a country that kept its word, and our allies knew it, and our enemies knew it, and that kept us safe. On cybersecurity, because they don't understand it. They don't have an answer on election security, because they're embarrassed to talk about it. And they don't have an answer on climate security, because they're not even prepared to admit that it's real. Thing is, it's real. We are past the point of debating whether it's real. The house is on fire. Parts of California caught fire, literally. Twice I activated the Emergency Operations Center of South Bend. Once for a 500-year flood, the other time for a 1,000-year flood, and that was 18 months apart. So either I got to get down to the casino and see what my statistically that's good for me, or we are at a moment of tectonic change, and we have to recognize climate security as a security issue and something with the destructive power on par with a war or a depression, and we can't be afraid to invest because we cannot afford not to. So don't let anybody tell you Democrats can't put what we believe in into a bumper sticker. Freedom, democracy, and security. That'll fit on a bumper sticker. Let's go! The doors of getting known. Like I said, I haven't been on the scene for decades. I haven't got the household name recognition that a lot of the other folks have. So if you believe in our message, or if you simply believe that a voice like mine would be a good one to have on the debate stage. Yes. That's worth $3 to you. I need you to go on PeteForAmerica.com and help us out, because they're going to count up not how much money you raise, but how many people helped you raise it. It's grassroots. Finally, it is grassroots. This is what grassroots looks like. Then I need you to tell 10 friends, and then I need you to get them to tell 10 friends, and that's how we're going to earn a spot in this conversation. That's how we're going to assert that a voice like this belongs at the table. And I happen to believe that when that voice is heard, people will listen. Yes. I'm not here to to talk about the president. I'm not here to talk about one election or one campaign season. I believe that the decisions we make right now, the campaigns we run right now, and the election ahead will be the beginning of how we win or lose the next half century. And what's at stake right now, and what I need your help with, is not how do we win an election. Let's win an era, and let's do it together.